The Strange Rider. This story was told by my grandmother, Dioselina. It is a fact of real life. The place was the beautiful and picturesque countryside of our Ecuadorian coast. My grandmother and her family lived on a farm with a few hectares, where they planted rice, corn, and tomatoes, and they dedicated themselves to the raising of farm animals, such as chickens, dogs, cows, and along with them their pets that were guard dogs. In the farm, my grandfather Pedro, my uncle George, my grandmother, my mother Blanca, and my aunts Violeta, Susana, and Yolanda. It was a beautiful summer afternoon. The weather was cool and the air was pure countryside. There was the singing of the birds of the field, the unmistakable sound of cows, chickens, porks, ready to spend another peaceful country night. In the field at that time, there was no electricity, and at 7 o'clock everyone went to bed to get up at 4 in the morning, early for their work on the farm. But that night was going to be very different. A cousin of my grandfather came to the country house, whose nearest neighbor was 1 kilometer away. This cousin informed my grandfather that they had to go to the nearest town because there was a problem with the sale of a head of cattle, and that they had to go personally to fix it. My grandfather immediately saddled his white European-sized horse, asked his eldest son to accompany him, and they set off on their respective horses. The night was not so dark because there was a full moon. At some point, travelers could be guided apart from their hand lanterns during the trip to the village. Back at the farm, the ladies were getting ready to go to sleep. Suddenly the dogs began to bark uncontrollably. The sound of the wind was heard that hit the windows. The ladies in the house began to tremble from fear, afraid of something that they did not see, but they did feel it. Suddenly everything was silent, a terrifying silence. The dogs outside the house began to howl like wolves. The women in the interior embraced as if something terrible was going to happen, prayed for divine providence to protect them. It was an indescribable sensation. Then the dogs stopped howling and ran to hide under the house as if someone had stung them or they simply experienced death. In the darkness of a night, one could hear the galloping of a rider. There was nothing else around except the whinny of a horse approaching the house. I heard him closer, closer, she said. My grandmother, with great courage, approached the window and, moving a little the curtain, is surprised to see something creepy. She saw a man riding a purebred black horse. The man was wearing a black suit, a very large hat that covered part of his face. The horse with his rider stood for a moment, looking at the country house. I didn't know what made him change his mind, that he was withdrawing with a strong gallop and got lost into the darkness. Suddenly the sounds of the night came back to reality. The frightening fear dissipated, and the ladies of the house commented loudly the terrible moment they had passed through. One of them said that perhaps it was the very devil that came to pick up a soul of the place.